When you think of a revolutionary, you don't usually picture a priest, do you?
Right.
But this deep dive into the life of Franz Xaver Lender, this biography, it might just change your perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
It's full of surprises, and it really makes you think about faith, politics, and how one person can really try to make a difference.
Absolutely. And Lender's story is one of those that challenges those labels, you know. You want to pin a label on him. But he was really rooted in his Catholic faith. But he's also passionate about social justice.
Yeah.
So he's constantly clashing with both church and state authorities.
And it all starts, as so many stories do, with his upbringing.
Right.
Germany in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Politically, just a powder keg. And he grows up in Constance right in the thick of it.
He does. His family background is really interesting. I mean, his uncle, a school director, really instilled in him a very strong sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Even if it meant standing up to authority. And this is important because back then, challenging the government could cost you your job, your freedom.
Oh, absolutely.
It was serious business.
Yeah. And his uncle actually gets fired.
He does, yeah.
From his teaching position for that. So it's almost like Lender inherited that rebellious spirit.
He did, very much so. And what's fascinating, at 17, he's already super involved in the workers' movement. He's writing bylaws for their organizations.
Wow.
Giving speeches. Can you imagine?
A teenager.
A teenager standing on a table in a tavern, rallying workers for a better future. It speaks volumes about his character, his charisma, this unwavering belief in the power of collective action.
Yeah, and what's amazing about this is the time of the 1848 revolution.
Absolutely.
Against the German monarchy. At 18, he is like fully embraces the revolutionary spirit, even wearing a uniform to school.
Wow.
Like, that's some serious dedication, even if it did get him expelled.
Yeah. It's that idealism, that fire in his belly for change. But here's the thing. He wasn't just caught up in the moment. He was also a pragmatist.
Well, and that's clear from how quickly he becomes disillusioned with the revolution.
Right.
Why is that? I mean, was it the danger? Was it the chaos?
Those definitely played a part.
Yeah.
But the biography really points to his disappointment with the lack of organization, strategy within the movement.
So they had all this passion.
Yes.
But no real direction.
Here's this great anecdote about the uprising led by Struve, right?
Yeah.
He thought they were joining this army. It turns out to be this tiny little band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 35 men. Lender quickly realizes romantic ideals, they're not going to overthrow a monarchy.
Right.
You need more than passion. You need numbers. You need weapons. You need a plan.
Right.
And they had none of it. So it's a huge reality check for this young man who desperately wants change, but also, wants it to be effective.
So he escapes to Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
A haven for political exiles.
Of course. Switzerland, always the neutral ground.
Right. You'd think he'd lay low.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But not Lender. This is where the story takes a turn.
It does. This is where the mysterious aunt comes in, Rosalia.
Every good story needs a mysterious aunt.
Right.
So who is she? What role does she play in his life?
Well, she's connected to the Prince of Sigmaringen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And while the details are a little fuzzy, it seems she really helped him escape.
Okay.
And influenced his next move. Lender ends up in Munich studying theology.
Wait a minute. Big change.
From revolutionary to priest, that's quite a jump.
It is.
What happened?
It's a question historians still debate.
Yeah.
Biography has a few ideas. One is family. Devout Catholics. Maybe they always thought he'd be a priest.
The classic, it's your calling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Lender wasn't one to just follow the crowd,
Right.
He was a rebel at heart.
Yeah, especially after his younger years. Yeah.
Right. So what else could it be?
The biography talks about how he may have been inspired by other priests who'd fought for justice.
Interesting.
Like there's this one story of a Capuchin monk who fought alongside Andreas Hofer, that Tyrolean folk hero, against Napoleon.
Wow.
So maybe Lender saw a connection there, this idea of channeling that revolutionary spirit.
Right. Instead of on the battlefield within the church.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And then you can't forget the state of the Catholic Church in Germany at that time. This is the era of the culture camp.
Right.
A huge struggle between the church and the state.
And just for those who might not know, what was the culture camp?
So culture camp, it translates to culture struggle. Basically this power struggle between the Catholic Church and the newly unified German state.
Okay.
Bismarck, a Protestant, he saw the Catholic Church as a threat. They had allegiance to the Pope in Rome.
Yeah.
He wanted to limit their power, their influence.
Right.
So he starts enacting all these laws aimed at doing just that.
Wow. So to be Catholic in Germany at that time, that had to be a very, like, uneasy feeling.
Oh, absolutely. Priests were getting arrested.
Wow.
Schools were becoming secularized. The church faced pressure constantly from the government. It's very possible that Lender saw all this, saw the challenges, and felt this renewed sense of purpose,
Yeah.
a desire to serve, to defend his faith during a time of real crisis.
Right. So he starts as a revolutionary fighting for political change.
Yes.
Disillusioned, the church and the state are at odds. He finds himself going down a new path.
He does.
And it's just the beginning.
Oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's funny, he goes from revolutionary to priest, but that rebellious streak in him,
Yeah.
it never really goes away.
No.
It's like those early experiences fighting for workers' rights. It kind of shaped how he approached even being a priest.
It's true. It's like he just can't help but clash with authority,
He can't help
whether it's in the church or the government.
Yeah, and you see that right away. He starts challenging people, giving these really powerful sermons,
Yeah.
speaking out against government policies he thought were unjust,
Yeah.
especially towards the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
There's even a story about one sermon. It got confiscated. They thought it was too inflammatory.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Like,
That's wild. A sermon too hot for the public.
right.
It really shows you how tense things were back then between the church and the state.
Absolutely. A lot of mistrust.
Yeah.
But Lender, he wasn't all fire and brimstone,
Right.
He really cared about people, especially the vulnerable ones.
Yeah. And that's where his work with orphans comes in.
Exactly.
This decision to start an orphanage in Schwarzach, it's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is. It's a big part of his story.
And the biography mentions this thing called child auctions.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
It's a dark part of history, not something people talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But basically, when parents couldn't care for their children, if they died or whatever, the town would auction them off
You're kidding.
to whoever would take them for the least amount of money.
Wow, that's just awful. I mean,
Stuff to hear about,
it
right?
is.
These kids were treated like property, their whole future decided by who would pay the least.
Yeah, we've come a long way since then, thank goodness.
We have. It makes you appreciate what we have now.
It does.
Lender, though, he was horrified by all this.
Yeah.
He saw how these kids suffered. They'd get sent to work in terrible conditions, neglected, abused. He knew he had to do something.
And he did.
He did. He started small,
Yeah.
just taking in a few kids himself, gave them a place to live, food, and education.
Yeah.
But that was just the start.
It always starts somewhere, right?
It does. His compassion just grew and grew. He gets a bigger house, then a bigger one.
Right.
And finally, he establishes a real orphanage with the help of some nuns.
Amazing. So he's fighting the system again?
He is. He just can't help himself.
That's Lender.
That's Lender. He always fought for the underdog.
But even getting the orphanage going, I'm sure that wasn't easy.
Oh, no. He had pushback from communities. They didn't like outsiders coming in.
Yeah.
The government gave him a hard time. They didn't trust him.
Of course.
Bureaucracy, you know how it is.
Always.
But Lender, just like when he fought for those workers, he wouldn't back down,
No.
especially for kids who couldn't fight for themselves.
That's a running theme in his life, isn't it? He seems to always be fighting for the underdog.
That's true. It's a big part of who he is. And remember his uncle, the school director,
Oh, yeah.
the one who got fired. Well, he finally gets 6 years of back pay from the government.
Ew, wow.
And guess where some of that money went?
Let me guess. The orphanage.
Straight to the orphanage. It's really something, isn't it?
It is. It's like it all came full circle.
Full circle,
Yeah.
like it was meant to be.
And the impact of the orphanage, it went even further than he probably imagined.
It did. It really did.
Yeah.
One of the nuns who worked with him, Sister Alexia, she was so moved by Lender, by what he was doing. She went on to found the Franciscan Sisters European Province.
Wow, that's incredible.
Isn't it?
So his legacy, it keeps branching out.
It does. He touched so many lives, directly and indirectly.